Good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to welcome you all to our first webinar of our 4BlueNJ and NJ Wellness webinar series. I'm Jess Correa, a mental health specialist and wellness specialist at Rutgers University Behavioral Healthcare. 4Blue New Jersey is a peer support program and helpline that works to support corrections officers and all correctional facility staff. Throughout our webinar, you'll be hearing from our 4Blue peers, and we hope to hear from you as well. We will be recording this webinar for those who are unable to attend. Even if your camera is on, your picture will not be displayed in the recording. However, if you'd feel more comfortable being off camera or changing your name, we'll give you a minute to do so before we go ahead with the recording. We are honored to be collaborating with the New Jersey Department of Corrections and working with Nicole Sargenti, the NJDOC Wellness Coordinator, to come up with new ways to introduce and practice wellness into corrections. Welcome, Nicole. We are very excited to be working with you on this new initiative. Thank you so much to all who have taken the time to join us today. We've designed this webinar to learn more about each and every one of you and how our program can better support your needs. As we move forward with today's webinar, we will mention corrections officers, and it's important that we identify that we are speaking in reference to any staff member in a correctional facility setting. On your screens, you'll see our flyer, which may look familiar if you've seen it around your workplace. These are a few of our upcoming webinars to take note of. The 4Blue New Jersey Lifeline is part of the National Center for Peer Support at Rutgers University. Our peer support program utilizes the reciprocal peer support for wellness model to provide specific support. So when you call in to speak with someone, we can assure you that the person answering your call comes from a similar background. Now on your screens, you'll see our flyer. We encourage you all to take a picture of this flyer, which highlights all of our important information. Even if you may not be in need of our services or support at this time, you never know when someone at work can benefit from our assistance. I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce you to our peer support specialist and leader at 4Blue New Jersey. Cherie Castellano, Kelly Perkins, Angela Hinton, and Earl Williams. Some of our peers have joined us today and will be introducing themselves further in the chat. We also want to hear from you and invite you all to introduce yourselves by telling us your name, your position or job title, and what correctional facility you're representing in the chat. Our mission here at 4Blue New Jersey is to provide peer support for New Jersey corrections officers and staff in correctional facilities. Our team is comprised of peers who are retired corrections officers and COP clinicians. They understand the challenges you face every day on the job and can relate to your stressors. Our services at 4BlueNJ include peer prevention, resilience and wellness webinars, UPR for correction officer resilience, peer intervention, corrections peer support, telehealth, telephonic clinical assessments, and access to our first responder networks, referrals, and resources, peer and postvention and psychological first aid, and critical incident stress management. At 4Blue New Jersey, we have built on the foundation of the wellness approach of wellness based on Peggy Swarbrick's 8 dimensions of wellness adopted by SAMHSA, which we have identified as a key model to self-care. Although we would love to spend time focusing on each dimension of wellness, today's webinar will only be focusing on the first two, social and emotional wellness. We'll be learning about the other dimensions in our upcoming webinars. Let's turn our focus to the first dimension of wellness, which is social wellness, which is defined as developing a sense of connection, belonging, and well-developed support system. There are many ways we can focus on and enhance our social wellness and personal relationships. Supporting your social wellness can include building trust and showing support in your relationships, learning how to communicate effectively, understanding your communication style, reflecting on personal conflicts, and identifying areas for improvement, and finally, respecting any needs and wants that you may have. While it's important to take note of ways to support your social wellness, we also want to take some time to focus on strategies that you can use to enhance your social connections. Finding new social connections is a great way to create new relationships. You can join a group surrounding a hobby of yours. You can try something new by taking a baking class or poetry. You can join a community group or a social media group. You can also try traveling to new places such as state parks or trying out some new hiking trails. These suggestions can help lead you to new social connections in your neighborhood. Once you've made a social connection with someone, it's important to prioritize a healthy relationship. You can maintain a healthy relationship by sharing your feelings honestly, asking for what you need in a relationship, avoid being overly critical, compromising, setting boundaries, and listening to others without judgment or blame. These strategies will help ensure that your relationships stay strong and healthy. Now we're going to be hearing from our peer at 4Blue, New Jersey to learn more about his experiences and his views on social wellness. I'm now going to be passing it over to Earl. I think you're just having some audio difficulty, Earl.
Could you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, should I start over?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Earl Williams. I started corrections at the age of 32. After working 14 years of retail management, I wanted a job that would pay me for every hour that I worked. I took the test for the New Jersey Department of Corrections and was placed on a long waiting list. In the interim, I took a position at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, a federal prison. It was a great learning experience, but it was just temporary until they got to my name on the list for NJDOC. They finally got to my name in October of 1991. I gave the Metropolitan Correctional Center my 2 week notice and started with NJDOC. I started this position, figured I knew how to deal with people because of my managerial experience, but working in prison took a lot of getting used to. Once I adjusted to being frisked on the way in the building and not being allowed to bring my meals in or go out for lunch, and the controlled movements and some of the working conditions. I would work in areas with no air conditioning when it was almost 100 degrees outside, or work with no heat when it was below freezing outside. I basically had no problem with working with the inmates because I was given a set of rules to govern the way I did my job and govern myself accordingly by not taking it upon myself to add or delete anything to further punish the inmates. I earned respect for my peers and always willing to give them help and support when needed. I also had no problem getting used to following the last order giving. On your shifts, you may have 5 or 6 supervisors, each with their own ways of doing things. I quickly learned to do what I was told as long as it doesn't cause harm or danger to you, harm or danger to myself or anyone else. So therefore, the supervisors felt respected and respected me in return. I enjoyed my job because I felt I made a difference by walking the walk and not talking the talk. When it comes to social wellness, I treat everyone the way I wanted to be treated and not judge others by what I may or may not have heard about them. I'm also a very good listener. So I know when a person just wants to vent, they're not really looking for a response or my opinion. I have no problem with assisting those that don't have the ability or the foresight to help themselves. I honestly feel when I help others with their struggle, it actually helps me to prepare myself for like issues I may have in the future. Instead of thinking, why help others, I feel, why not help others? I'll be passing it back to Jess.
Thank you so much, Earl, for sharing your incredible experience and why you became a peer, at wanting to really help people. I think that's super important. Now we'll be watching a short video that goes into the importance of first responders like yourselves and social connections.
All right, hey, I'm Steve Maynard with Guardian RFID. Today we're going to talk about, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it, being burnt out as a corrections officer. It's huge, but a lot of people don't want to talk about it because it's maybe an ego thing or a pride thing. I'll never get burnt out, but I'm telling you right now, throughout your career, there will be a time where you will feel burnt out. You'll feel overworked. You'll feel stressed out. And I'm no professional. I'm no psychiatrist, but I can speak from experience, and I can speak from the conversations that I've had over the years with many, many officers and subordinates that were burnt out. These people were burnt out. I've been burnt out several times as a corrections officer with my 14 plus years. It happens. So you need to know how to maybe cope with it, how to maybe fix it or look for help. So we're gonna go over a few things. What the biggest things that I saw throughout my career in law enforcement. If you notice bad habits, you're starting to create bad habits. You're starting to do things not by policy. Shortcuts, because it's easy. It's easy to do a shortcut. If you start noticing yourself doing these things on a daily basis that are not right, but they're easy, stop it. Rewind, reel that line back in and that hook back in, rewind and stop. Get back on track, because that is the beginning, okay? That's the beginning of beginning to get burnt out and doing things the wrong way. Calling out. You start catching yourself calling out. And this goes to supervisors too. If you notice your staff creating these habits and these officers are calling out more than they normally do, or they're coming in late, they're arriving to work late, they're missing briefing, they just seem like, I don't care. Pull them to the side and talk to them. It could be something simple. It could be home life and not work life. And I talked about that in my last video. Don't let the two mix, but sometimes it's hard for human beings to separate the two. So as supervisors and as other co-workers, if you notice your partner going through these things, or they're just not the same, try to help them out. Just talk to them. We as officers, I keep saying we as officers have a thing called pride and a thing called ego. And it's hard to swallow that sometimes and just put it down and talk about our problems. We all have them. It is what it is. Learn how to talk about them. Find that person or those people that you can talk and keep it confidential and get help. Looking messy, I talked about it in my last video as well. Look sharp. If you catch yourself starting to not care about your boots being shined, your uniform's wrinkled, your duty belt's dirty, your whatever, you're starting to grow your hair out, your beard's all messy. These are signs. It could be a sign of, I just didn't care today, or I woke up late today, I slept in today. It could be that, but it also could be, I'm burnt out and I just don't care. If you see yourself getting to that point, it is very dangerous. Being burnt out can get you killed working in a jail or a prison. It can get you killed. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. A lot of people do. Drinking and smoking excessively. If you catch yourself getting off work and you're like, I just got to have that drink to cope with my day. Now there's whoever you are, depending on who you are, you might have a beer or two a day or whatever it may be. But if you catch yourself excessively drinking or excessively smoking throughout the day just to cope with the job, might want to get some help. Talk to someone. Just say, I realize my problems. Talk to someone and get that help before it gets too late. And the last one is just being lazy on the job. I said it earlier. If you see your coworkers getting lazy, not doing things by the book, which is how officers should be conducting their duties, by the book. When I say the book is policy and procedure, or department's guidelines. And okay, if you start seeing these patterns, address it as soon as possible, whether it's one-on-one or it's in a platoon briefing or a shift briefing, and just say, hey guys, ladies, I notice production is down. I notice rounds are getting a little late. Address it to everyone if you don't want to single someone out. Maybe they'll say, oh, he might be talking to me. But just be mindful, be aware. And that's my tips on how to maybe help you as an officer or supervisor cope with being burnt out. Thank you.
Now that we've heard about the importance of socialization and combating burnt out by talking to others, we're going to dive a little deeper into social wellness. We want you to check in with yourself and see how is your social wellness. Could it use some improvement? Or maybe you have this dimension of wellness covered. We're going to take a quick quiz to see. We'll give you a second to grab a piece of paper and a pen if you can, and jot down your answers as I read through the quiz questions aloud. There are a total of 10 questions regarding what you do to maintain your social wellness, and the scoring is on a scale from 1 to 4. I will read each statement and you can jot down how often you engage in the activity being described. 1 is if you are rarely doing that activity, and 4 is you're always doing that activity. All right, the first one is I am involved in at least one university or community group. Again, 1 if you are rarely involved, 2 if you are sometimes involved, 3 if you are most of the time involved, and 4 if you are always involved. Number 2, I plan time with family and friends. Number 3, I enjoy the time I spend with others. Number 4, I respect the diversity of others. Number 5, I give priority to my own needs by saying no to others' requests of me when applicable. Number 6, I participate in a wide variety of social activities and enjoy being with people who are different than me. Number 7, I try to be a better person and work on behaviors that have caused problems in my interactions with others. Number 8, I have someone I can talk to about my private feelings. Number 9, I consider how what I say might be perceived by others before I speak. And lastly, number 10, I give and take equally in cooperative relationships. All right, let's take a few minutes to add up those scores. The highest score you could get is a 40. So if you're close to 40, you can congratulate yourself for prioritizing your social wellness. If your score surprised you in any way, take a moment to reflect back on those questions and see if there are any specific areas that could use improvement. We have a few wrap-up suggestions for you before we move on to our next dimension of wellness. We want to encourage you all to accomplish these 3 tasks within the next week. Connect with others this week. Keep in mind that offering and receiving support is an important part of your overall wellness. Try to reach out to 1 or 2 people every day. This can be family, friends, colleagues, and neighbors. Checking in is a great way to maintain social relationships. And lastly, keep in mind that a simple hello or how are you can go a long way. Now that we have a good understanding of social wellness, we're going to move on to our next dimension of wellness. Emotional wellness, which is coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. Emotional wellness is also about understanding your emotions and how you experience those emotions. Stress is a common feeling, especially in your line of work. So it's important that we recognize stressors and learn healthy ways to reduce stress so that we can avoid burnout. Some may experience stress differently than others, so we're going to be pointing out some common signs of stress. Take a mental note as I read through the signs to see if you've experienced any of these signs either on the job or when thinking about a specific situation. That may be your body telling you that it's time to practice a self-regulation tactic. Stress in yourself and others can be noticed through memory issues, overthinking, avoidance, sweating, stomach issues, panic attacks, trouble breathing, lack of patience, trouble concentrating, procrastination, constant worrying, needing reassurance, headaches, rapid heartbeat, and insomnia. All these factors influence your stress levels and potential health risks, so it's important to learn how to manage our stressors and to make sure we're taking care of our mental health. We can combat stress by using self-care and being mindful of how our emotions can impact our behaviors. Some of our tips that help combat stress are to work in a team when possible. Journal, talk to family and friends, supervisors, and teammates about your feelings and experiences. Practice breathing and relaxation techniques. Maintain a healthy diet, get enough sleep, and exercise regularly, and set boundaries. It's important to remind yourself to take breaks when needed. Your well-being is more important than your profession. Overworking does not mean that you will be able to make your best contribution. And there are people who can help when you are looking for support. Now that we've learned how to recognize some emotions, let's hear about some ways we can cope with stress.
The reality is that if you work in corrections long enough, something that you see, hear, say, or have to do is going to come home with you. And if you don't understand that, if you don't acknowledge that, if you don't realize that the enemy that we're fighting is the correctional environment itself, then you're going to be in bad shape. And I wrote about and talked about the differences between how this job affects you and it affects everybody differently. And I'm not going to dive into it on this video. You can go back and check it out or check out my books. But the point is, knowing that it will affect you, knowing that it is a possibility, puts you in a better position to combat it when the symptoms come up. Another piece to keeping the impact that this profession has on your personal life to a minimum, to a manageable level, is having a transition strategy. An intentional divide. A buffer between work and home. Between the inside and the outside. For me, I have a distinct routine when I'm getting ready for work to leave the house and when I'm coming home from the facility to my house. Because in a world of chaos, those two things are what I can control. The time that I get ready and the way that I get ready, the way that I prepare myself to put on my professional face is the same every day. And it starts to transition the mental morphosis from personal life to professional life. Mental morphosis, I like that. We're going to talk about that later. I shower, and that starts the process of shifting from father to officer. Then I have certain spots in my house. Some people have like a basket or a place on a table where they put everything. I don't have that. I have some stuff in the bathroom. I have some stuff where I get dressed, put my uniform on. I have some stuff downstairs in a basket. And then I have some stuff out on the door. It's almost like when you enter the facility, you go through different doors to get to where you need to go. This routine even includes where I park my car, because after I get off shift and I change, I like to walk a little bit to my car, decompressing, processing the events of the day. And when I drive home, I take that time to come down. I don't listen to the radio. I put on my cruise control and I just drive. If I'm making sense, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, like this video and leave me a thumbs up in the comment section. Also, what do you do to separate the two? I know y'all do something, right? Oh, sorry, I'm waiting for you to type your comment. Guys, the last part of this, and maybe the most important part, is communication. Is to talk to your friends and family. Is to share what you're feeling and needing as you navigate this emotional minefield that is corrections. You gotta let them know if it was a tough day. You gotta let them know if you're stressed. And if it's best that you skip the dinner party. I know that sometimes we want to keep our professional life separate from those at home. We don't want to talk about the things that we see because we feel like we're protecting them. But in reality, we're isolating them, because we need their support. And if we don't communicate what we need to those that love us, well, then they're not going to know how to help or when to help. So include them, because this job, a career in corrections, not only affects the person who works inside. You not only bring this job home with you, but it has the potential to affect everybody around you, your entire household. All right, guys.
Time for another quick quiz. So grab your piece of paper and pen again and jot down your answers as I read through the questions. This quiz will be focusing on emotional wellness. The first question is, I am able to ask for assistance when I need it, from either family or friends or professionals. Number 1 is you rarely ask for assistance. Number 2 is you sometimes ask for assistance. Number 3 is often. And number 4 is always. Number 2, I am able to recognize the stressors in my life and have ways to reduce those stressors. Number 3, I accept responsibility for my own actions. Number 4, I am able to set priorities. Number 5, I try to avoid chronic worry, and I am usually not suspicious of others. Number 6, I feel good about myself and believe others like me for who I am. Number 7, I am flexible and adapt or adjust to life's challenges in a positive way. Number 8, I can express all ranges of feelings and manage related behaviors in a healthy way. Number 9, I maintain balance of work, family, friends, and other obligations. And number 10, I do not let my emotions get the better of me and I think before I act. Okay, let's take a moment to add up those scores. Again, the highest score you could get is a 40. So if your score surprised you in any way, take a moment to reflect back on that question and see if there are any areas for improvement. In William Young's video, we learned about some ways to cope with stress. And now we're going to talk about another way to cope with stress, which is using a grounding technique. The grounding technique you see on your screen is one of my favorites. I love this one because you can do it anywhere, so you can do it at work, and it's pretty quick and easy to do. So we're going to go through the steps together. As I read through each step, feel free to share your answers with us in the chat or think of each answer in your head. The first step is to notice 5 things that you can see. Look around you and bring your attention to 5 things you can see. Try to pick something you normally wouldn't notice, maybe a shadow or a small crack in the floor. The next step is to notice 4 things that you can feel. Bring awareness to 4 things you're currently feeling. This can be the texture of your clothing, maybe a breeze on your skin, the surface of that piece of paper. Next, you're going to notice 3 things you can hear. Take a moment to listen and note 3 things you hear in the background. Maybe a bird outside, a distant conversation, faint sounds of traffic nearby. Next, notice 2 things you can smell. Bring your awareness to smells that you would usually filter out. Maybe there's a breeze carrying a smell of something, perfume, food. And lastly, you're going to notice 1 thing that you can taste, focused on the current taste in your mouth. You can take a sip of a drink, chew a piece of gum. Just try to notice that current taste in your mouth. This grounding technique is a really great one to use to help with rumination or if you just need a couple minutes to yourself. Now we're going to hear from our peer Earl to see how he copes with the stress of being a first responder. I'll be passing it over to Earl.
For starters, I try not to take anything personal and realize that everything won't always go the way I plan for it to go or feel it should go. Through my life experience, I've learned that change is good. When it happens initially, it may not seem that way because of the newness, but things have a way of working itself out if you're patient. I also realize that there's no growth without change. I also practice not being governed by my emotions, meaning not letting my emotions take control of my actions. I feel that I've had a good career because I've always treated everyone the way I wanted to be treated by giving them respect, and in return, they respected me. Working in the control environment that I work, you learn quickly how to get your job done without causing harm or danger to yourself or anyone else. I remain the same every day, not changing my attitude because of issues or problems I may have been going through. When verbally attacked, I didn't take it personal. I realized most of the time they were talking to the uniform and not the person in the uniform. I refused to let anyone or anything govern my emotions. I was a leader of men and women as a union vice president, so I had to lead by example. That I did, gave everyone respect and received it in return. I'll now be passing it back over to Jess.
Thank you so much for sharing, Earl. Since September is Suicide Prevention Month, we did want to highlight suicide specifically in the field of corrections and talk about some statistics, risk factors, and resources available to you. Correctional officers have the second highest mortality rate of any occupation. 33.5% of all assaults in prison and jails are committed by inmates against staff. A corrections officer 58th birthday on average is their last. A corrections officer will be seriously assaulted at least twice in a 20-year career. On average, a corrections officer will live only 18 months after retirement. Corrections officers have a 39% higher suicide rate than any other occupation. and have a higher divorce and substance abuse rate than the general population. Noting those statistics, we're going to look at some risk factors and some ways that we can prevent this. Some risk factors include historical factors such as childhood trauma, previous suicide attempts, and family history. Environmental factors include prolonged stress, working in a stressful environment, and exposure to suicide. And health factors include mental health conditions, physical health conditions, and traumatic brain injury. Protective factors are factors that aid in the prevention of suicide, which include access to mental health care, feeling connected to family, community support, problem solving and coping skills, and cultural and religious beliefs. Support and connection are key protective factors. 4Blue New Jersey is available to provide support, mental health information, and connection to you or anyone in corrections who may be looking for some additional support or resources. We also want you to keep an eye out for any warning signs you may see in yourself or in others. Most people who take their lives exhibit one or more warning signs, either through what they say or what they do. It's important to look out for any talk, behavior, or mood changes that may seem out of character for someone. If someone is exhibiting any of these signs, there are resources that can help. You can reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Line by dialing 988 or texting the number on the screen. And in New Jersey, we also have the New Jersey Hope Line, which can be reached by phone or text as well. These QR codes are great to scan. They'll direct you right to their respective websites, and that's where more information can be found about each program. 4Blue New Jersey is also a great resource to use if you're unsure of who to call or what to do in a situation. We're here to provide support, resources, and can link you to emergency services as well. However, if someone you know or yourself are in a crisis, we encourage you to reach out to the New Jersey Hope Line or the 988 line. Now we want to hear from you. We have some poll questions to get a sense of how often you reflect on your emotions and stressors. These questions will pop up on your screen and we'll give you a few moments to go through each one and answer. Your answers will be anonymous. Give everyone another minute just to answer any last minute questions. And then we'll discuss the results. Okay, the first question was, how often do you pause throughout your day or shift? 100% of people answered sometimes. That's great. I'm glad to see there are no nevers. It's good to just take a break when you can in between shifts. I know in corrections it's especially hard, so it's important that we're taking that time to ourselves. Question number 2, how often do you check in with yourself to notice any stress or tension? Again, the popular answer for this one was sometimes. That's great. As long as we're checking in here and there, it's good to take note of that stress and tension. Number 3, how often do you take notice of your emotions? Again, all of us answered sometimes for this one. That's great, as long as we're taking notice of those emotions. Number 4, do you agree that you can use this grounding technique while at work? And 100% of us said yes, so that's great. That grounding technique using your 5 senses is a really great one, especially to use at work. And number 5, how often do you practice self-care? Looks like all of us said sometimes. So that's good as long as we are practicing self-care. This one does have some room for improvement on there, so maybe we can try to work up to practicing self-care often or even every day. Doing quick grounding techniques like that one that we went through together is a really great one. It only takes about a minute or two, so that could be another goal for your emotional wellness. As we wrap up the webinar, we want to just share some final tips to take with you. Maintaining an optimal level of social wellness allows you to build healthy relationships with others. Having a supportive social network allows you to develop assertive skills and become comfortable with who you are in social situations. Surrounding yourself with a positive social network increases your self-esteem. Those with balanced emotional wellness have fewer negative emotions and are able to bounce back from difficulties faster. This quality is called resilience. Learning healthy ways to cope and how to draw from resources in your community can help you build resilience. Overall, enhanced wellness aids in boosting morale, positivity, enthusiasm, increasing employee engagement, reducing stress and anxiety, enhancing problem-solving skills, improving corporate culture and public image, reducing sick days, and controlling chronic diseases. And lastly, some simple reminders we'd like to share with you before you go are to check in with your peers. Take note of who may be acting differently in the workplace. If someone seems withdrawn or cutting corners, as mentioned in that video from earlier, check in with them, see how they're doing, provide them with 4Blue as a resource. Reach out to your support system. Reach out to your family, your friends. We are here to reach out as well. And finally, practice wellness techniques regularly. You can use that grounding technique that we spoke about. Even texting a friend or a family member each day just to check in is a great way to enhance your social connection. I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed the webinar and learned some new information. And just a reminder that our next webinar will be on December 20th, where we will be going over spiritual and environmental wellness. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.